The Florida Joint Center for Citizenship presents Evaluating Candidates, Video 2, Evaluating Candidates for State Office. On Election Day, voters are handed a ballot that usually includes more than one contest. Oftentimes, citizens cast their vote in races for federal, state, and local offices. For each race, there is a list of candidates. Candidates are people running for a specific office. In this video series, we will learn about the requirements of candidates running for political office. Additionally, we will look at ways voters can evaluate or judge candidates running for office. In general, official requirements to run for political office can be sorted into several categories: age, citizenship, residency, or where someone lives, and term limits, which is how many terms a person can hold the same office. After watching this video, you will be able to 1. Identify the requirements to run for state and local offices, and 2. List some ways to evaluate a candidate running for office. Let's get started. Each state has its own constitution that creates the structure, function, and powers of the state government. The Florida Constitution outlines the qualifications people must meet in order to run for state-level political offices. These state-level offices include governor, lieutenant governor, some Florida cabinet offices, state senator, and state representative. In general, in order to hold an elected office in Florida, a person must be a U.S. citizen, a Florida resident, and a registered voter, and at least 18 years old. Let's look at specific state political offices, starting with the governor. According to the Florida Constitution, a person running for governor must be at least 30 years old, be a U.S. citizen, be a Florida resident for at least 7 years, and he or she can serve for only 2 consecutive 4-year terms. If a governor wants to serve an additional term, they must wait 1 4-year term before running again. Let's check in. Using this chart, identify Florida's requirements to run for the office of governor. Answer: in order to run for the governorship of Florida, a candidate must be 30 years old, be a U.S. citizen, be a Florida resident for 7 years, and a governor may serve 2 consecutive 4-year terms. Well done. Let's recap what we've learned so far. The Florida Constitution outlines the requirements to run for state political offices. To run for the office of governor, a person must be 30 years old, a U.S. citizen, and a Florida resident for 7 years. A governor may only serve 2 consecutive 4-year terms. Now that we know Florida's constitutional requirements to run for governor, let's take a look at the requirements to run for the Florida Senate and the Florida House of Representatives. The Florida Constitution sets the following requirements for candidates to run for the Florida Senate. A candidate must be at least 21 years old, be a U.S. citizen, be a Florida resident for at least 2 years and live in the district they wish to represent, and a state senator can only serve 2 4-year terms. Now let's look at the other house of the Florida legislature, the Florida House of Representatives. The Florida Constitution sets the following requirements for candidates to run for the Florida House of Representatives. A candidate must be at least 21 years old, be a U.S. citizen, must be a resident of Florida for at least 2 years and live in the district they wish to represent, and a state representative may only serve 4 2-year terms. Let's check in. Using this chart, identify the requirements to run for the Florida Senate and the Florida House of Representatives. Answer: a candidate running for the state Senate must be 1. 21 years old, 2. Be a U.S. citizen, 3. Be a Florida resident for 2 years and live in the district they wish to represent, and 4. They have term limits. State senators may serve 2 4-year terms. Answer 2. A candidate running for state representative must be 1. 21 years old, 2. Be a U.S. citizen, 3. Be a Florida resident for 2 years and live in the district they wish to represent, and 4. State representatives have term limits. They may serve 4 2-year terms. Well done. Let's recap what we've learned so far. The Florida Constitution outlines the requirements to run for state political offices. To run for the Florida Senate and the Florida House of Representatives, a person must be 21 years old, a U.S. citizen, and a Florida resident for 2 years and live in the district they wish to represent. The only difference for candidates running for the Florida Senate and the Florida House of Representatives is term of office. State senators are term limited to 2 4-year terms, and state representatives are term limited to 4 2-year terms. The Florida Constitution gives cities and counties the power to create their own charters, which are rules for governing themselves. As you learned earlier, no person may hold elected offices in Florida unless that person is a U.S. citizen, a Florida resident, a registered voter, and at least 18 years old. Now that we understand the state constitutional requirements to run for state and local elected offices, let's look at some common things voters consider when deciding which candidate to support. When citizens get ready to vote on Election Day, how do they decide which candidate they will vote for? Ultimately, it's up to each voter to decide which candidate they think will do the best job. There are some common things that voters can take into consideration when deciding which candidate they will support. We will look at a few of these: experience, platform, debates, and political ads. A candidate running for office may have served in some other elected or appointed position, or they may have skills or life experiences that would help them do their job. For example, many elected officials actively participate in their communities, graduated from college, and may have served in local government before running for state or federal office. These experiences may make them a more attractive candidate. A voter may want to consider the ideas and beliefs that a candidate has on certain issues. These ideas might include how to fund education, regulate business and the environment, healthcare, government spending, taxes, and foreign policy. A voter may decide to vote or not to vote for a particular candidate based on their views and ideas on particular issues. Let's check in. Why might a voter consider a candidate's experience and platform when deciding whether or not to vote for them? Answer: a candidate's job or past experience might provide them with the skills that will be useful for the elected position they are running for, and a voter might consider a candidate's platform to understand their position on the issues that are of concern to the voter. Well done. Let's recap what we've learned so far. When deciding which political candidate to vote or not to vote for, voters consider a candidate's experience, ideas, and beliefs. Experience might provide a candidate with skills that may be useful for the elected position, and a candidate's platform helps a voter to understand the candidate's ideas and beliefs on issues of concern. Now that we understand how voters consider a candidate's experience and platform positions when voting, let's now examine how voters consider debates and political advertisements. A voter may want to watch a political debate before the election. Watching candidates running for the same office debate each other might provide a voter with information on how well a candidate presents their views on issues, how they interact with others that may not agree with their position, and how they handle a stressful situation. Finally, a voter might take into account political advertisements for and against the candidate. During an election, candidates who are running for public office often create commercials to appeal to voters and say why they are the best choice or why their opponent is not a good choice. Let's check in. Why might a voter consider a candidate debate and political ads when deciding whether or not to vote for them? Answer: a candidate's performance in a debate can show a voter how a candidate communicates their ideas on issues and how they interact with others that may disagree with them. Candidates use political advertisements to appeal to voters, to communicate a positive message about themselves or a negative message about their opponent. Well done. Let's recap what we've learned so far. When deciding which political candidate to vote or not to vote for, voters consider a candidate's debate performance and political advertisements. Debate performance can show how a candidate communicates ideas on issues and interacts with others, and political advertisements can communicate positive messages about the candidate and negative messages about their opponent. Thanks for watching. This video produced for instructional purposes by the Florida Joint Center for Citizenship at the Lou Fry Institute at the University of Central Florida. Video produced and edited by the Florida Joint Center for Citizenship staff.